What is distinctive of Jesus' final discourse in Mark chapter 13 and parallels is that it concerns the destruction of Jerusalem, a set of persons resident in a spatial configuration overlaid with many layers of meaning and feeling. Bruce Malina notes that if one is to forecast the destruction of a city in the ancient Mediterranean world, a number of stereotypical themes inevitably come to the fore. And if one makes this forecast in Israel of the first century, the phraseology and the language and the nomenclature will be Bible speak. Israel's sacred books provide the prevailing cultural intertext for Israelites in the period. When God speaks in the synoptics, when God speaks to Israelites in altered states of consciousness in the first century, their brains, informed by Bible speak, will hear God using Bible speak. And so would persons close to the realm of God, like the soon-to-die Jesus. He's going to use Bible speak too, because his brain's been informed that way. We always interpret alternate reality through our cultural consensual reality. Scholarly commentaries, Bruce Malina says, have ample information about biblical allusions in Mark chapter 13, but most scholars make little, if any, mention of the fact that this final discourse, Mark chapter 13, shares much of its terminology with astrological, astronomical documents of that period. Furthermore, along with such astral terminology, stars, planets, son of man, gigantic constellation, anthropoid constellation, the unfolding sequence of 1, wars, international strife, 2, 3, famines, 4, earthquakes, 5, persecutions, 6, eclipses, are common to all the synoptics and the book of Revelation. What is common to these events is that the ancients saw them all as triggered by celestial entities, celestial sky vault non-human persons, and sky vault events. Mark chapter 13, 24 to 27. But in those days after the tribulation, Jesus says, the sun will be darkened. That's a non-human person. And the moon will not give its light. And the stars will be falling from the sky vault. Those are all non-human persons. And the powers of the sky vaults, non-human persons, will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, the sky vault man, with great power and glory. And then he will send out the angels, constellation stars, and gather his elect from the four winds, from the end of the earth to the end of the sky vault. That means everything, everyone, everywhere. His elect. Israelites, right? Yeah. Wake up. Scholars such as Ray Hobbs observe that this viewpoint is traditional in ancient Canaan, Mesopotamia, and Israel. You know, Canaan and Mesopotamia influenced Israel in its evolution. For Yahweh Shabbaoth, Yahweh of hosts, note the astral and meteorological phenomena associated with his military interventions. Lightnings, mists, thunders, clouds, especially in the poetic presentations in Judges chapter 5, poetic presentations of Psalms, but also in Judges 5 and Exodus 15. Note too that he often, Yahweh, roars from the skies like thunder. His voice is thunder. Consider that fire chariots come down from the sky, like for Elijah. Remember Elijah taking up the sky vault in a fiery chariot? A chariot is like a tank. It's a war, not a spaceship, Joe. That is completely anachronistic. Not at all. They can't imagine spaceship. What it is it's a chariot. It's a war device. It's a war device. What draws a chariot? Horses, right? Horses are war animals. Paul was not on a horse when he converted. He didn't fall. It never says in Acts he fell off a horse. A horse is a war animal. It's like a tank in the first century. So these fire chariots descend from the sky vault. They're features of celestial military, sky vault military events as well. War is going on up there. As we know from Revelation chapter 14, verse 6 to 20, The coming of this sky vault being, the Son of Man, the sky vault man, does not necessarily signal the end of any cosmic time period. Just destruction of a city as commanded by God, Babylon, which is a stand-in for later Jerusalem. After the destruction wrought by one like a son of man, that's a great humanoid constellation, and accompanying angels in Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 to 20, no new sky vault and new earth follow. That happens later on when they get renewed at the end of the book. All that is involved is a judgment on the inhabitants of the city. This is exactly what happens in the scenario described in Mark chapter 13. And to repeat, this scenario too is part of astral prophecy. Of course, the problem with history is that history essentially consists of scenarios in the mind of the historian. Take, for instance, God bless Joe. Fiery chariot, that's a spaceship. That's ethnocentric and anachronistic to our way of seeing things. No offense to Joe, meaning, but that's a natural thing that just came out. And biblical scholars, even though they're very sophisticated, they try to not do that, that still leaks in. So how can we test their scenarios to see if they're accurate? In the social science method, the simple acid test, is to find comparable behavior on the planet in the contemporary world. Behind this test is an ancient medieval logical principle, and that is this. If something exists, it could have existed. But if something could exist, if we can conceive of it, it did not necessarily exist. It does not necessarily exist. Ab esse ad posse valet elatio, a posse ad esse non valet elatio. If something exists, it could have existed. But if something could exist, if we can conceive of it, it does not necessarily exist.
Like Star Wars.
Right. Right. Bruce Malina found that parallel case of the holy man, Ayatollah Khomeini, peace be upon him, to be instructive in this regard. That's why I told you the story. Especially in face of the flamboyant claims of Bart Ehrman and the confused conclusions of persons finding apocalyptic eschatology of any stripe in Mark chapter 13. When I say holy man here, right, it's a shamanic term, somebody who has access to alternate reality, okay? In sum, compare relative to Mark chapter 13, the received view with the social science view in figure 2. The received view of Mark 13, the genre is apocalyptic, the scope is all humankind, the context is final state of humankind, and the content is eschatology. What a different picture we have from the social sciences of Mark chapter 13, huh? The genre there is final words in ASC experience. The scope is limited to first century Israel. The context is advent of theocracy in Israel. The content is forecast of destruction of temple and surrounding temple city, Jerusalem. The received view says that the source of information for all of this is rational research and pseudonymous technique. But the social science view of Mark chapter 13 says the source of information is altered states of consciousness experiences of those aware of impending death. The basis, according to the received view, Old Testament symbols, midrashic methods. The basis, according to the social science view, is astral prophecy in Bible speak. The message, according to the received view of Mark 13, is end of the world, this age, soon. End of the age has world global impact, universal cosmic impact. It's an event of universal concern to humankind, not just Israel. But the social science view says it paints a different picture. The social science view of Mark 13 says the message is the end of Jerusalem and temple soon. The end of society as hitherto known as local impact only. Celestial territoriality over Jerusalem and its vicinity. The message is an event of particularistic concern to all Israelites, not universal concern to all humankind. The received view of Mark chapter 13's trigger situation is the delay of the parousia, the royal return of Jesus, cosmic Lord. The social science view of Mark chapter 13 says the trigger situation is a population of Israelites in abeyance. Israel is awaiting theocracy. The medium, according to the received view, is apocalyptic discourse or apocalyptic eschatological discourse. The Son of Man is a cosmic entity making the end of the age happen. People are in control of their lives. The gospel message is liberating. How individualistic, how Western. In the social science view of Mark 13, the medium is final words of one soon to die. The Son of Man is a Middle Eastern sky vault entity at work in specific cataclysms localized around Jerusalem. People are totally controlled. They're not in control of their lives at all, like peasants.